Attention, members of the House, representatives of the House will reconvene at 7 p.m. Please make your way to the House floor. The House will reconvene at 7 p.m.
The House should be in order. On page 2 of the calendar, House Bill second reading. At the top of the page, we have House Bill 910. Leader Buckner. Mr. Clerk, please read the bill.
House Bill 910, a bill for annexing state government. This bill was read a second time previously. No commitments. Floor Amendment number 3, offered by Representative Buckner, has been approved for consideration.
Leader Buckner on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Amendment 3 becomes the bill, so I'll move to adopt it and discuss it on third reading.
Leader Buckner moves for the adoption of full amendment number 3. All those in favor say aye. Opposed say nay. Ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. For the amendments, the clerk.
No further amendments. No motions are filed.
Third reading, please, the bill on third reading.
House Bill 910, a bill for enact concerning state government. Third reading this House bill.
Leader Buckner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 910 is an economic development tool for the state of Illinois. I'm excited to talk about it. This bill is about growth. It's about development. It's about jobs. And it's about making sure that Illinois is modernized when it comes to projects of a certain size. This is about rail yards, tourism, downtowns, entertainment districts, construction workers, minority contractors, local governments, homeowners, schools, and the future of the economic development of the state of Illinois. This bill says Illinois is not going to sit back and watch other states build the future while we argue over yesterday's tools. And this bill gives us the chance to compete and not compete recklessly, not compete desperately, not compete by giving away the store. This bill says we can compete with standards, we can grow with guardrails, we can welcome private investment and still demand public benefit. So this is what the amendment does. It creates a modern economic development toolbox for the state of Illinois. There are 5 major tools in this bill. First, the mega project pilot style assessment freeze. This allows major projects to get property tax certainty, but they do not pay nothing. They still pay property taxes on the frozen base, and they make a negotiated annual special payment on top of that. That special payment can support local taxing bodies, help protect schools, and half of it will provide property tax relief for men and women, homeowners, families across the state of Illinois. These projects have to meet real thresholds. Major investment. The bill tiers the length of the freeze based on the size and the complexity of the project. A smaller qualifying mega project does not get treated the same as a billion-dollar project. Bigger projects, harder projects, projects with remediation get a longer runway because they require more financing certainty. That is responsible. Second, the bill updates STAR bonds. STAR bonds are about using new sales tax growth from a project to help pay for the infrastructure that makes the project possible. The project performs, the increment helps pay. That's the way it works. If the project does not perform, the revenue is not there. This is not magic money. This is performance-based infrastructure financing. For a regular STAR project, we're talking about at least $30 million in capital investment, at least $60 million in annual gross sales, and at least 300 new jobs. That is a real project. That is real economic activity. Third, this bill creates and updates NOVA, New Opportunities for Vacation and Adventure. This tool recognizes something very obvious. Modern development is not just one building anymore. It is creating an entire district. People go to a game, a concert, a restaurant, a hotel, a museum, a public space, a transit station, a medical campus, a cultural attraction. NOVA helps finance the infrastructure that makes these kind of destination districts work. A NOVA district has also very serious thresholds. 500 contiguous acres, 500 million in capital investment, 300 million in average annual gross sales, 1 million in average annual visitors, and 1,500 in average annual jobs. And then there is NOVA Urban. It's built for dense public spaces where the land is complicated and infrastructure is expensive. NOVA Urban requires at least 20 contiguous acres of air rights, at least $1 billion in capital investment, with 75% of that investment tied to infrastructure project costs, and 450 million in average annual gross sales, 2 million for average visitors, and 3,000 average annual jobs. Fourth is a bill that supports the capital city of Springfield. Springfield is not just another downtown. We know that it is a city that has statewide obligations, but has no opportunity for statewide benefit. So therefore, we are doing something in this bill for Springfield. Springfield is the front porch of Illinois government. And this bill creates the Capital Area Tourism Authority to support tourism, hospitality, commerce, and development primarily in the 62701 zip code. It also creates the Capital City Downtown Medical District, which is focused on healthcare, education, and research. This is, exciting because Springfield has the ability through this to be able to grow on pace with other cities around the state. Fifth, this bill creates READY, the Railroad Rehabilitation and Economic Development for Yards program. READY is about unlocking land that has been stuck for generations. Illinois has rail yards, rail corridors, rail infrastructure that has become unusually hard to develop. Ordinary tools do not always work when you're talking about platforms over rail or environmental remediation or transit access, utility work, and massive infrastructure costs. READY is designed specifically for that. It is for projects in a city of 2 million people or more. At least 75% of the cost of land and the project improvements must be infrastructure costs. The project has to show the potential to generate at least $40 billion in aggregate new tax revenues over 40 years and increase regional transit ridership by at least 10,000 average daily boardings. These are high bars. This is once again, an economic development package that does a number of things, and I'm looking forward to discussing them with my colleagues, but what is also baked in this bill is project labor agreements, minority contracting goals, school protections, property tax relief, local review, impact analysis, ethics protections, DCO review of benefits to underserved communities, no data centers, no phantom EAV, no stacking every incentive on top of others. This is growth, but this is disciplined growth. Looking forward to discussing this with Mr. Speaker.
In discussion, Leader Windhorst is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the sponsor yield?
Indicate he will.
Thank you. Leader Buckner, one of the primary reasons this bill is brought forward has a lot of economic development, of course, as you outlined, but one of the primary reasons has to do with the Chicago Bears. If this bill passes, will the Bears remain in Illinois?
I don't work for the Bears, so I can't answer that question specifically, but what I can tell you, Leader Windhorst, is that this bill puts together the mechanism that makes it possible for the Bears to stay here in the state. I think that for their own internal conversations, there needs to be more conversation about infrastructure and other things. But what this bill does is it, once again, creates a statewide suite of mechanisms that allow organizations like the Bears to remain a part of Illinois' stream of commerce and to also entice other entities who may be domiciled in other places to come here to the state of Illinois.
Do the Bears support this bill?
I've had a lot of long conversations with the Chicago Bears, including as well as other different entities. I have not seen that the Bears have slipped in opposition of this. I think the ongoing conversations have been very good. I think this framework is aligned with the things that they have said that they want to see from an Illinois bill.
Does the governor support the bill in its current form?
I haven't spoken to the governor personally today, but I will say that for the last 3 months, there's been intense, robust conversations with the Senate, the House, because I'm assuming you're going to ask about the Senate next.
You're one step ahead of me.
There it is, my friend.
Yep.
And the governor's office about the framework that we need to put together, once again, not for a particular organization or entity, but for entities that we want to be here in the state of Illinois.
Let's talk a little bit specifically about the mega projects. You mentioned that projects would be treated differently based on their size. How will size impact how the projects are treated?
Yeah, so when we say size, we're talking about the investment level. All right, so the thought process is that a $500 million project is not the same as a $4 billion project. And as we begin to have conversations on what this needs to look like from the lens of responsibility, we landed at a place where a lower tier investment should not get the same property tax freeze duration as a larger one, obviously because there's less money and less resources involved in that. And so there's a tiered structure. It starts at 25 years for the first tier, 30 for the second, and 40 for the third. And part of the reasoning behind that, starting at the 25 number, is that another tool that people have used in this state for a long time, because we have not had something like this, is TIF. And TIF begins at 23 years. And so as developers are looking at what program works best for them, it is really important for us that they can pick something like this that gives more power to local authorities, more power to local taxing bodies, and more accountability and transparency to do this right. So we would rather them choose this over tax incremental financing.
And if you could describe how the incentives will work for the project as it relates to property taxes.
Yeah, so what would happen is that if a project is granted a mega project certificate from DCEO, which requires a few prerequisite steps, including the project labor agreement and the minority contracting piece, as well as the investment in numbers that they're going to put into the project. Then after they get that certificate, they get to then go back and work with the local taxing bodies, the local review board, which will then freeze their property tax at the current rate it is that day. And that will be their payment for the duration of whatever that freeze is. But in addition to that, there will be a special incentive payment that the developer will make based on whatever is negotiated between the local review board, the municipality, and the developer.
And that payment in lieu of taxes, a portion of that will go for what's been described as property tax relief, and the other portion will go to the local taxing bodies.
That's correct. The way the bill is currently written, 50% of that 100% will go to property tax relief, and of that 50%, 60% of that will go to property tax payers in the immediate area that's affected by the mega project, and 40% of that would go to the statewide Illinois Property Tax Relief Fund that we stood up thanks to the hard work of Representative Diddish and Leader Morgan in 2019 that has yet to be funded.
Under this bill, there's no clarity for how local taxing bodies should treat the increased EAV. This is especially important for counties that beyond just the one project that we began our discussion with, important in counties that are in a PTEL status. What guidance do you have for counties on how they should calculate the increased EAV?
So DCEO, they don't want my guidance. DCEO will be able to give that guidance to counties, but part of the reason that we landed here, Leader, is because the initial version of the bill had an obligatory sentence in it that made them assess it at the fair market value. What that created was a phantom EAV issue where people were going to be ended up getting their taxes assessed based on something that wasn't being paid by the developer. And so we've removed that from the language. This is a perfect time to tell you that this is a tool that gives a tremendous amount of local control. Towns, counties, municipalities, taxing districts to be able to come to the table and to not just approve or disapprove a deal and an agreement that works, but to also actually help negotiate it.
What guardrails are in place to keep property taxes from going up exponentially in areas that see new mega projects?
Yeah, there are a couple of things. One, there are some extreme guardrails in here to make sure that schools are held harmless so that if a mega project comes into town and the school district somehow has to bear the brunt of that, and therefore then they go back and levy more on people, we're trying to avoid that by, once again, having some certainty in the payment levels to schools, as well as giving them some recourse when things happen like a district has a ballooning enrollment or ballooning capital needs based on a mega project and what it may bring. There are parameters and guardrails in this to make sure that that doesn't happen. That's the biggest way to protect from that cost shift.
Let's talk just a little bit about local control. You mentioned DCEO's role. You've alluded a little bit to the local piece of this. What impact or decision-making will the local governments have on whether these projects occur in the jurisdiction, and then once they do occur, the control over the project?
Yeah, so the local municipality is actually who the agreement is made with, but it has to go through the local review board first, which there's a requirement there for public meetings, publication of certain things, of the documents that are required to make an educated choice in these conversations, having access to that for the local review board. So all of these things are there as parameters, and then the municipality has the ability to, once again, sign the deal on the property tax piece for the local. They have to pass an ordinance in that space, and to ensure that the municipalities are not getting a bad deal, that they're protected, that what they were sold in the application is actually what's happening in real life. The General Assembly, will require every 5 years a new report to say what's going on, give us the economic snapshot, the property tax situation, and that is due at the end of every 5 years to the General Assembly, so we can make sure that that project and this program is doing what it's supposed to do.
And how will membership on the local review board be determined?
Excuse me. So by whatever their normal mechanism is to make decisions, right? So if it's a park district, many park districts in Illinois operate off of passing resolutions. If it's a mosquito abatement board, I don't really know how mosquito abatement boards work, but whatever they do is how it will work. School boards, same way. And then
does the local review board then have an independent existence from those boards?
Well, they're representatives of those boards, and so they're representing those specific taxing entities on that board.
And you mentioned, I believe, in committee and reflected in the bill, this is a weighted vote.
That's right.
And how is the weight of the vote determined?
Based on how much of the entire tax pie, I'll call it, each of those entities have within the area that is cordoned off for that mega project.
Does that encourage local taxing bodies to increase their levies then to have a greater representation or greater vote on the board?
No, the way this is written, this is, it doesn't necessarily incentivize doing that. I understand why you're asking that question, but I think, whatever the current taxing structure is before the certificate is applied for is going to be where it is, right? So I think it would be pretty difficult for somebody to raise their rates not knowing whether or not a project was coming and those type of things.
And you explained the weighted vote, but it's possible that you have a taxing body that has a lower weighted vote but will bear more of the burden of the project, such as a road district, which may not have a large weighted vote but would have to see a greatly increased cost compared to other taxing, maybe such as a library board. What mechanisms or protections are in place to make sure that those less represented boards, even though their weight of the vote may be lower, they're still able to have their needs met as a governmental body? Yeah,
we anticipate that there may be instances around the state where there's some friction between the taxing bodies, and there may be someone who may not have a significant percentage of the weighted vote, but once again, to your point, bears the burden. Part of the way this works, though, is that when the agreement is moved over to the municipality to sign and to turn to ordinance, all of those things have to be considered in the conversation. I don't, being honest with you, leader, I don't know that there's a way that you can solve for every crazy issue that may happen within a local municipality, but this does a pretty good job of keeping those guardrails there so that doesn't happen.
And I'd like to conclude with a couple questions on the property tax relief portion of the pilot. So 60% will go directly to residential homeowners in the taxing districts. Will that be in the form of a rebate, a reduction in their tax bill? How do we envision that?
Yeah, so the way the bill is written, we're looking at it as a rebate. We wanted these dollars to go directly to homeowners as some direct relief through their process. That's the way the local piece. We're hoping that it works, but what happens with the local piece, though, is that the municipal government also has to pass an ordinance on exactly how they're going to initiate and operate that program. But on the larger state side, there's already a rubric in place on how that money is divvied up, and it starts with the money going from the treasurer to the fund, from the fund to the comptroller, sending it out to the counties based on the number of homes with homestead exemptions and dividing it using some very fancy math to get there.
So in the statewide property tax relief fund, every property taxpayer in the state will benefit from that? Is that what is envisioned?
That's the hope. I mean, obviously, as it starts off, the smaller amount of projects, the less money in the fund, the less amount of money you can give to people, right? But the way that these brilliant gentlemen set up this was that it is supposed to be statewide, equal, going across all regions of the state without any preference on where a person may live.
Are there any protections in the bill as it relates to the local taxing district's levy to make sure that their tax extension doesn't eat up whatever rebate or refund may be awarded?
Sorry, ask me that one more time.
Yes, the concern is that taxing districts will just increase their levy or tax extension to a point where it eats up the rebate and the property taxpayers don't see any actual savings. Are there any protections that would limit the ability of those taxing districts to levy a certain amount?
Yeah, well, those taxing districts still have the ability to levy the way they do today. Obviously, it would be easier to tell them, to try to cap them, but I think that's an issue that we've got across our taxing structure throughout the state. So it's no different here, but I think the thought process is that if we can put the right parameters together, we can make sure that when a taxing body who is a member of this local review board, when they look at the consumer price index and inflation, that they make sure that the deal that's being agreed on is something that does not force them to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leader Windhorst. We'll be moving forward with a 3-minute timer. 3 minutes. Representative McLaughlin is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the sponsor yield?
Nick, as you will.
Representative, a couple of questions. So I listened intently in Revenue Committee to the structure of this proposal. Where did the template from this structure come from? I mean,
The template?
yeah, this didn't fall out of thin air. I mean, has this been used in other?
There are a number of other states that do this. Michigan has the SOAR program. Kansas has both the STAR and the APEX program. Texas has a program called JETI. There's a similar program in Kentucky. So we've seen municipalities, we've seen states around the country utilize this. Not this in particular. I think that this is the best version of all of those things because it takes the positive things that we've seen in other places and amalgamates them.
So you talk about a 5-year review to make sure that the promises of tax protection will come back to the General Assembly, I think you said, to make sure that it's working as intended. Do we have evidence of that from these other examples?
That the projects work as intended?
Yes, that there hasn't been adverse impact in Michigan and Kansas.
Correct. We've not seen that. In fact, today in committee, Representative Leader Tarver asked a question to an opponent of the bill who was assuming that there would be this huge tax burden shift issue. And he asked the question, have you ever seen this happen anywhere else? And the answer was no. So when these tools are used correctly, we have not seen adverse impacts. I think one other thing I want to add, Representative McLaughlin, is that in addition to that 5-year report analysis that has to happen, not just on the first 5 years, but every 5 years after that while the freeze is in effect, we are also sunsetting this bill after 7 years. The reason for that...
Thank you. I'm limited in time.
Oh, my bad. I'm sorry, brother.
To the bill. So, guys, if we remember a number of years ago, we should have had the stadium built by now, and I'm talking about the Bears because as much as this is about the whole state, Had Arlington Heights Village not tried to tax the Bears immediately, which was about a $900 million estimate in incentives it would have taken at that point, the stadium would be 3/4 built and the entire development about half done by now. Then we went into the city of Chicago and they fumbled it again, and we're in competition now with Indiana. The estimate of what this has risen in cost over time is about $2.5 billion. So although the complexity of this I don't have a ton of confidence in, one thing I do know is my friends on the other side of the aisle and the governor certainly cannot afford for the Bears to leave the state of Illinois, and more time will cause greater expense to the tunes of billions of dollars of incentives. So for that reason, to stop the bleeding on incentives and taxpayers, I urge that we move forward.
Please bring your remarks to a close.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Just one final sentence. So I urge that we move this project forward because, let's face it, guys, it's going to happen, and the longer we wait, I can't watch billions of dollars more in incentives be thrown away. So I'm going to advocate for this at this time, and I'm asking for those that want to protect the taxpayer to do the same. Thank you.
Leader Ann Williams is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the bill.
The bill.
So, Leader Buckner has discussed the benefits of this package, the economic impacts throughout the state, but I wanted to address specifically what's in it for the city of Chicago viewed through a progressive lens. And the answer is opportunity. Opportunity for significant economic development activity, which can set the city up for major investment, bringing in economic activity, growth, and an influx of tax dollars at a time where we desperately need more revenue without placing additional burdens on our residents and, in fact, providing property tax relief for those who need it most. Let's take a look just at one example in Chicago, our marquee museum campus and Soldier Field. There are proposals out there right now which can provide significant development opportunities while still preserving our beautiful lakefront. If we utilize the tools presented in this package, this could be a game changer for Chicago. Opportunities for major economic impacts, including state, county, and city sales tax revenue. Opportunities for jobs, both permanent and temporary construction jobs, which bring with them, of course, employment tax revenues. Opportunity for improved transit outcomes, increased utilization of existing transit services, and additional opportunities benefiting the system as a whole. Of course, educational and workforce development opportunities, and opportunities to enhance community services and public facilities. Projections for revenue from such projects over a lifetime tally up to the billions with a B. What a massive return on the investment for Chicago, which could bring significant revenues to us without placing an additional burden on taxpayers. Here's just a couple examples. In June of 2023, the Taylor Swift concert at Soldier Field brought in $39 million in hotel revenue in one weekend. In May of 2025, the Beyonce concert there brought in $85 million over 1 week. Those stunning numbers don't even count the money spent by concert goers at restaurants, in cabs and in ride shares, or retail. Imagine the potential if we modernize and revitalize the stadium and museum campus and are able to maximize our ability to use the stadium year-round. What could that mean for the issues that mean the most to us? Because these increased revenues will help alleviate the budget pressures at all levels of government and support the progressive causes that we care so much about. Affordable housing, homelessness prevention, mental health services, health care, violence prevention.
Please bring your remarks to a close.
Yes. You yield. Here we are creating revenue where there otherwise was none, allowing local communities to make the decisions best for taxpayers without demanding more from Illinois taxpayers themselves, relying in a large part on tourists and visitors to help fund our budget priorities. Chicago is a world-class city and a top tourist destination, but we can't afford to remain static. We need to constantly look for new opportunities to grow. Our budget priorities reflect our values, and we owe it to the people we serve to identify, pursue, and deliver resources to fulfill the commitments we've made to our constituents and deliver on our shared progressive values. This bill will help us do just that.
Representative Noski is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the bill.
Bill.
So I just want to start off by saying the sponsor of this bill has done yeoman's work, has done a great job presenting this bill, I think, in multiple committees as well as other places, and so has done a good job explaining it. It'll just be interesting to see, I think, what the elder statesmen in the Senate and their opinion of this bill, because I do think it has a little bit of work still to be done. I have three major concerns I just wanted to highlight briefly. And number one, some of it's kind of been talked about, but this idea of the phantom tax or the possibility of a tax shift. While I appreciate the sponsor took out language that kind of referenced that, I think that's still a gray area. I'm hopeful that as this moves along that we can actually have firm language that prohibits a tax shift so that other taxing bodies in and around the megazone area are not allowed to increase their tax levy over PTEL. The second thing that I want to point out is just taxation in general. I think this is going to create a little bit of the haves and have-nots, so we just need to be careful with this. In the development zone, you're talking about having a property tax that is going to be far under what those properties are outside of that zone. So for instance, if you have restaurants, commercial hotels within the zone, the property tax on those establishments as a whole are going to be far less than hotels, restaurants, and commercial spaces across the street. What's going to end up happening is obviously retailers and those businesses are going to flock towards where property taxes are less and the cost of doing business is less. I think that's going to be a real concern, not just for the Bears development, but as we look to increase these potentials across the state. Finally, the point that I would like to make is in the area of property tax reform, while I certainly appreciate the sponsor's attempt at reducing property taxes or giving some property tax relief, a much better approach would be simply to do what some other states have done and put some sort of hard cap on what individuals' property taxes can be based off their house, whether it's 1 or 2%. Or let's pass something that limits increases on property taxes to a maximum fixed amount, whether your value goes up or local entities increase taxes, so that we give real reform and relief to property taxes, which are the highest in the nation in Illinois. So I would certainly hope that this body and in the Senate, we continue to work on this and fix some of these defects in this bill. Thank you very much, Speaker.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Dittich is recognized.
Bill. To the bill, Mr. Speaker.
To the bill. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in strong support of House Bill 910, which I view is a groundbreaking piece of legislation for the state of Illinois. This is a piece of legislation that will be a magnet for business, be a magnet for jobs, be a magnet for economic activity, and provide a direct property tax cut to every homeowner in the state of Illinois. A property tax cut to every homeowner in the state of Illinois. Here's how it works. When a mega project gets built, the value of that land will increase, generating additional revenue. A portion of that revenue will be deposited in the state property tax relief fund. That money will then be distributed to every county in the state of Illinois based on the number of homeowner exemptions that are claimed in that county. That money will in turn be distributed directly to homeowners in every county in the form of a lower property tax bill with a new line item on that property tax bill that shows exactly how much the state of Illinois is cutting their property taxes. And it does that without reducing revenue for our local schools, without reducing revenue from our local police or fire or infrastructure funds. It is a direct property tax cut for every single homeowner in the state of Illinois. I strongly urge an aye vote on this piece of legislation. It is a win, 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 win. It's a win for business. It's a win for our local schools. It is a win for property taxpayers who will see a property tax cut. It is a win for the entire state of Illinois. Touchdown Buckner, please vote yes.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Ellick is recognized.
I'm not sure how I follow that, but will the sponsor yield?
As you will.
Thank you, Leader Buckner. I wanted to point out something in Amendment 3 on page 178. There's language in the original Star Bond language that talks about money that will go into the school improvement fund, which then gets distributed to the Regional Office of Education so that they can share some of that funding with other schools in a region or county. And that benefits all the schools, not just the school district where a Star Bond project is located. However, in this amendment, might have been in the previous one, but definitely in this amendment on page 178, it says now, except in a Nova district or in a Nova urban district. Was that language intentional?
No, I think that was just a function of a bunch of different bills floating around and versions getting kind of mixed up. I'm having conversations with folks about that now, Leader, and we'll be sure to smooth that piece out because that's an important piece for that fund.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that last part.
That's it? Lord. I said we'll be sure to smooth that piece out to come to some resolution on that because that's not the intention.
Okay, so you feel like that's hopefully something that will get changed and improved. I think that's a selling point for this and for those districts throughout the county, so that I know in Madison County we have districts that are underserved and in need of additional funding, and I felt that this was a way that they would perhaps benefit from a potential project in the district.
Yeah, Leader. And to that point also, I've had some folks reach out since we last spoke who actually are in that Nova space that actually want to be able to provide into that fund. And so I don't believe it was intentional. It was something that we can work through.
Okay, thank you. And then another question. We know that there are already applications that have been made likely throughout the state for Star Bond districts, potential Nova districts that are, the applications have been made. They've spent money to do their plans and their impact studies and things like that. I am a little concerned that we are now kind of changing the rules of the game during the process. Is that a concern that you would like to address here?
Yeah, and I was appreciative of you bringing that up to me. I've already sent a note to DCEO about it so I can get some more flavor and context on how we can address this in real time.
Thank you. I want to just make sure that's on the record that that concern is out there. And to the bill.
To the bill.
Thank you. I look forward to seeing the vote on this today. I think this does have potential to help any one of our districts, but there are certainly a lot of technicalities, and I look forward to further discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Will Davis is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The sponsor yield.
As you will.
Representative, thank you for obviously bringing this forward, so I'll try to run through my questions fairly quickly. So how do you anticipate with a bill like this that it could provide help for underserved communities?
So a couple of things. One, we talk about the prerequisite of 20% minority contracting that has to exist before you even are granted a certificate. I think that that's one piece of it for minority-owned businesses and communities that have been under-resourced. There is also a piece of this legislation that gives DCEO the requirement to look at where a mega project will be located, giving more weight to it if it will be located in a place that has been traditionally underserved or under-resourced.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Also, in terms of a mega project, can this effort lend itself toward the building of a third regional airport in the Southland area?
So as long as it meets the thresholds for the mega project pilot, it can lend itself to that. The mega project piece in particular, and I know we talked a little bit about Star Bonds. Star Bonds could be used for anything that actually is going to generate sales tax revenue, so maybe not on a runway, but for the other things that are connected to a third airport in Peatone.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. To the bill.
To the bill.
This is a unique opportunity, I have to admit, because for someone like me, it gives me an opportunity to be in the very beginning of what could be major developments. Many of you have heard me for years talk about the building of a third airport, not just the building of a third airport, but what it lends itself toward communities like the ones that I represent, for the Harveys of the world, for the Markhams of the world, for the East Hazelcrests of the world. This is a unique opportunity, but what's important and what's incumbent upon a legislator like me is to make sure that I am engaged in the conversation early enough to make sure that the needs of my communities are met, whether it's actual property tax relief, which means that residents will get resources back to them as property tax relief, but also development for underserved communities, as well as opportunities for Black and brown businesses. It is so very important that we advocate for those kinds of things, and this bill gives us the opportunity to advocate them on the front end. Whether or not the bill is soup yet, and maybe some changes might be made to it in the Senate changes need to strengthen that, need to include very specific language about how those opportunities manifest themselves for communities and for businesses. And again, the third airport. What a unique opportunity to build something that is sorely needed in the state of Illinois. Tell me a major metropolitan area that does not have 3 airports. Many of them do. Why shouldn't this metropolitan area not have a 3rd airport? It is so very important. And this is my message to the governor. Here's the opportunity to engage Southland legislators on finally building a 3rd airport. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Wilhar is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the sponsor yield?
Thank you. I think we need a lot more clarity on the phantom tax portion of this. And since this bill is now silent on that, is this up to the local governments to determine how to value the non-taxed, fully developed properties?
That's correct, Representative. Local control.
Okay, so it is correct.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. To the bill.
To the bill.
We're here having this conversation because the economic situation in this state is broken. It's been broken for a long time. We've built a system where you have to offer massive incentives just to get investment because Illinois is no longer competitive on its own in the marketplace. We have some of the highest property taxes already in the country, some of the highest debts. Spending has exploded. If you want real economic development, fix those fundamentals. You fix those fundamentals, you make Illinois competitive again, but we're not doing that here. We never do that here because it's easier just to cut special deals for the very powerful and send the bill to everybody else in the state to pay it. Let's be honest about what we're doing here. This is a 2-tier tax system. If you're big and politically connected, your property taxes are frozen at pre-development values. Your construction taxes get waived, and your final tax bill gets negotiated behind closed doors. But if you're a homeowner, a farmer, or a small business person, you pay the full value. No questions asked. You don't get to go in the back rooms and cut deals like this. Now, here's the part that should alarm every taxpayer in Illinois, because this is where the real damage happens. This deal allows local governments to treat projects as fully developed for borrowing and levy purposes. Like all that new value is on the books, while the corporation is only paying taxes based on the pre-development value. Think about that. Government gets to spend and borrow and build their budgets like it's a multi-billion-dollar property, but it's only collecting taxes on a fraction of that. Now, you can say that that's not how the local governments are going to work, but we see this story and over, tax to the max is standard operating procedure in Illinois. There's no real taxpayer protections in here. There's no guardrails on these levies. There's no limitation on borrowing against a value that isn't actually being taxed. So here's what happens. Local governments, they still have to fund schools. They still have to fund police and fire. They have to pay their bills. And the pressure that we're putting down here from Springfield, when the revenue doesn't match the spending, they have 2 options. They can raise taxes or they can take on more debt. And who gets hit? It's the people that are already getting crushed in this state. The homeowner opening the tax bill, the small business person trying to stay afloat, the farmer that's trying to hold on to land that the government's trying to steal from them. We already have a property tax crisis in this state. This bill pours gasoline on it. This isn't economic development. It's government.
Marshall, close.
Thank you. It's government picking winners and losers and making everybody else subsidize the deal. People are leaving Illinois. They get nothing. So if you care about out-of-control property taxes and government reform, you got to vote no on this. This isn't ready. There's no property tax protections in this. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Avalar is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the bill.
To the bill.
I want to take a moment to address something that has been said both inside and also outside of this chamber. This bill for the past couple of days, if not the past couple of weeks has been labeled as the Chicago Bears bill. And if that was all that this was, I wouldn't be standing here supporting it. This is not about one team. This is not about one developer or one project. This is about creating a broader economic development tool that the state of Illinois can use to compete, to grow, and to invest in communities that need it. Now, I also want to address a concern, which is also my concern, which is about corporate welfare, because that is a fair question. This bill is not a blank check, and I really do want to thank Leader Buckner, because in the extensive conversations that we've had, he knows that myself, I was a strong no for this bill, and he has gotten me to a yes. So I appreciate the conversations that you've engaged with, not only with myself, but with other of my colleagues. This legislation puts in place a structure with transparency, public oversight, and reporting requirements, and that matters because public dollars demand public accountability. At the same time, we cannot ignore the reality that economic development is competitive. Other states are making aggressive investment to attract jobs, tourism, and major projects, and if we sit still, we fall behind. But growth cannot come at the expense of working families. So as we move forward, we have to stay focused on what success actually looks like. Good paying jobs, real opportunities for local and small businesses, and development that includes the people who already live and work in these communities and not pushes them out. That is balance. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can be pro-growth and pro-worker. And that is why I'm voting yes on this bill today. Not for any one project, but for a tool that, if used responsibly, can help us build a stronger, more inclusive economy across Illinois. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Leader Ugasti is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the sponsor yield?
He indicates he will.
Leader Buckner, appreciate the conversation both here on the floor and in committee earlier. All the work you have done. I'm a big supporter, as you know, of economic development, much like you. Would love to see this, the theory of it move forward, but I don't know that we're quite there yet. So I have a few questions for you to start before I make any comments. The railroad portion of this bill, you already asked where the mega project originated. Where did the railroad portion originate?
So it originated after some conversations about rail-locked land, specifically in the city of Chicago, but around Cook County and the northern part of the state, and the lack of ability to develop there. And so there are a number of projects that, non-existent projects right now that are adjacent to, very difficult to build on rail land. And so that was the impetus for this.
Okay, and was this done in conjunction with input from the stakeholders or the Railroad Association?
No, so we did not have conversations with them about this until literally today.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how is the word railroad yard defined in this act? Do you know?
How's it defined? Give me 1 second. Okay, so what railroad rehabilitation is defined, but the actual word railroad is not in the definition in the statute.
Okay. And then finally, are the railroads required, or is their consent required in order for a project to qualify under this bill?
Oh, absolutely. This is not any takings, any eminent domain. This is not taking private land at all. This is land that the railroad either is willing to give up or has already been purchased by a private industry that wants to build in, near, or around it.
Okay, so their agreement somehow is required.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Regarding the general bill with the mega project, is there any residential development that will be allowed as a mega project?
Not in the mega project pilot, no, sir.
Okay, so I'm trying to understand then, you mentioned the schools are held harmless. What possible impact is this going to have on the schools, and why are we so concerned about, not that they shouldn't get something out of the tax dollars, but why are they particularly held harmless if there's no impact to them? There's not going to be any kids from any of these projects going to any of these schools.
Well, this is terra nova for us, Leader. This is brand new space that we've not done this before. And so what our intent is to make sure that the most vulnerable folks, in many cases our young people, are not left carrying the burden of anything that may happen as far as unintended consequences is concerned.
I understand. We all share the same concern for our youngest and most vulnerable. I just, again, this is why in part I believe maybe we're not where we need to be. The other question I had concerns the property tax cut portion. Another speaker on the floor mentioned that every taxpayer in Illinois is going to get a property tax cut under this. I just want to make certain I haven't missed something. In committee, you said the property tax portion is based upon the homestead, and then the money would be divided equally depending on the homestead exemptions a county has, and the money goes to the county. Is that correct?
Depending on so the money goes into the fund, and then it comes out based on the number of homestead exemptions within the county, and then it goes from that fund to the county, to the people.
Okay. Is there something in this bill that directs the county then to give the money to the people?
In this bill, no, but in the bill that stood up, the actual fund, the mechanism is in that bill, the 2019 bill.
So it's okay, because I had someone look, and it was my understanding, or I questioned someone who knew the bill, that it was my understanding there's nothing in there that actually directs that to each and every taxpayer. So maybe it's just a misunderstanding and need to go back and look. But you say
we believe it's there.
Okay, it's your belief it's there. Maybe if we both look and discover it, if it is there, great. We don't need to do anything. If it's not there, it sounds like it's certainly your intent. We need to make certain it lands there somehow.
If you're free after 8:30, I'll see you over here.
Okay, be happy to do it. We need to protect the taxpayers. To the bill.
To the bill.
Ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned, the intent of this is very good. We do need to work on bringing more economic development to the state of Illinois, but this bill is not ready. As you've heard many other speakers say, the EAV portion, the portion that would increase taxes possibly on other property owners in and near the property taxing district that the mega project's going to go into, are not protected. And I know we're leaving it to local control, as we're mentioning local control in a lot of this. And if we could trust local control for our property taxes, we wouldn't have the second or first highest property tax rate or property taxes in the entire nation, and our people wouldn't be screaming for property tax relief. And while this bill has something meant to address relief, it's not going to be enough. And we need to make certain it's going to be statewide and everyone's going to participate, and our homeowners as well as our business owners. There are properties within distressed areas where the value of the property is only a few times more than what the tax burden is every year. And it's just sitting there vacant, and it can't be sold, and nothing can be done with it. So we need to make certain we're getting this right, doing it right. And while I appreciate the desire to make something happen, I don't believe that we should be supporting a bill before we make certain we have all the necessary guardrails in place to protect our property taxpayers and make certain that they have actual relief coming to them. So I'm urging a no vote.
Representative Jimenez is recognized.
Thank you. To the bill?
To the bill.
So I rise today to thank the sponsor for putting together a project and listening to many of us who had concerns. And I support the sponsor's attempt at working towards property tax relief, which many of us believe is very, very important and have heard many times for our constituents. However, unfortunately, I cannot support this bill as is. From the perspective of the Chicago Northwest side in my district, I feel that these incentives, while working towards a mega project, really leaves out behind a lot of our communities in the Northwest side and West side of Chicago and many communities. I would prefer to be speaking right now around how to raise revenue, how to support our struggling communities. Homelessness was brought up. I do believe that the homelessness situation in our communities needs to be addressed, and I don't see this project as being the solution to that. So unfortunately, I had to rise just to say that, but I do thank the sponsor for trying to include some of these issues that are very important to us, but at this time, I cannot support it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Representative. Leader Hoffman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House. I would just like to thank Speaker Welch as well as Leader Buckner, Leader Tarver, Representative Canny. And this bill is a bipartisan bill. And we worked very hard with Leader Stevens as well as Representative Coffey to take into their concerns, make it part of this bill, and make this bill better. Let me just start with the three things that this bill does, and let me just touch on very briefly about what this bill doesn't do. The first thing that this does, as Leader Buckner indicated, is it contains the provisions regarding mega projects. Now, what is that? What is that? Well, it isn't necessarily about the Bears. It isn't about any one place in the state. I carried the mega project bill for the last 2 years. And why did I do that? Because it provides a needed framework for determining property tax certainty for the entire state. Not the Bears, just the Bears, but the entire state. For economic development, just a tool that can be utilized in order to make jobs, create jobs, opportunity growth, and tax relief. Now, people say, well, this is something that's going to provide these great tax benefits to these businesses. No. What it's going to allow is voluntary taxing districts to voluntarily band together and put together a procedure whereby we can provide tax certainty. It actually is going to increase the say of school districts as to whether there's an agreement on this. It'll increase the say of school districts because they'll have to sign off on it. Now, the leader talked about some other states that have done this, and there was some criticism from others on the other side of the aisle, but such liberal bastions as Kansas, oh boy, Kentucky, and those liberals in Texas did this as well. That's why we were able to work in a bipartisan fashion to get this done. Second, we already passed what we call star bonds, which is using simply the incremental sales taxes in order to sell bonds for infrastructure improvements. That's what it does. What we didn't do is we didn't include the city of Chicago. Now, I'm not from the city of Chicago, okay? But isn't it only fair that the entire state be able to utilize this economic development tool in order to create jobs and economic opportunity? That's why I support this. And finally, if I might, I'm really proud of the work we were able to do together with others on the other side of the aisle and local representatives here, because I've spent my entire springs of my adult life in downtown Springfield, right? We've all seen what is happening to downtown Springfield and our capital city. We live here. We live here from January to May. Downtown Springfield needs help. This provides the help that it deserves and will help out our capital city in the state of Illinois. I'm going to get economic development. The entire state is going to get economic development. And if the Bears want to use this, I don't care. I don't care, because we're going to create jobs, opportunity, tax relief, and growth. Thank you.
Leader Buckner to close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, colleagues on both sides of the aisle, for indulging me in this conversation. This has been a long time coming, and I am really proud to have brought many of your ideas, your thoughts, your observations to the forefront as we try to craft a version of this bill that worked not just for this chamber, but for the people of Illinois that we represent every day. I want to thank the speaker for allowing me to operate in this space and giving me the resources I needed to be able to work on what I think is a generational development bill for the state. The Dean of the House, Leader Hoffman, for his work on this for many years and his guidance in this conversation. Representative Mary Beth Canty, for all that she has done to get us to a really good spot on this bill. Leader Curtis Tarver, in his role as the revenue chair, and Leader Brad Stevens and Representative Coffey on the other side of the aisle for being willing to put down the party titles and put on the hat of Illinoisans who are concerned with our economic development. This bill is something that we've been looking for a long time, to not just incentivize folks, but to make Illinois competitive. And the best part is that we get to do that while still offering relief to the people who live in this state. That's a big deal. And I know very often in this building, the perfect can be the enemy of the good. But this is something that you can feel good about. We are moving the state in the right direction. I'm grateful to Deputy Governor Bernard and the governor for their work on this, to Senator Cunningham and his work on this, and looking forward to see what's next. I will just end by saying, Mr. Speaker, sometimes doing nothing because you can't do everything is indeed the problem. I would ask for a yes vote.
Seeing no further discussion, the question is, shall House Bill 910 pass? All those in favor of the ayes, please vote nay. The voting is open. Have all voted who wish? Have all voted who wish? Have all voted who wish? Ms. Clerk, please take the record. On this question, there are 78 voting yes, 32 voting no, and 0 voting present. And this bill have received a constitutional majority. It's about to declare it passed. Mr. Clerk, committee announcements.
The following committees will be meeting this evening. Appropriations General Services will meet in room 118, and Appropriations Public Safety and Infrastructure will meet in room 122.
Mr. Clerk, agreed resolutions.
Agreed resolutions: House Resolution 828, offered by Representative Scherer, and House Resolution 830, offered by Representative Ness.
Leader Gable moves for the adoption of agreed resolution. All opposed, opposed, and any opinion as having agreed resolution are adopted. And now, allowing preparatory time for the clerk, Leader Gable moves that the House stands adjourned until Thursday, April. Before we exit, a quick announcement. There were a pair of keys found in the chamber. Come to the well. Again, a pair of keys found in the chamber. Come to the well. Continuing on, and now, allowing preparatory time for the clerk, Leader Gable moves that the House stands adjourned until Thursday, April 23rd at the hour of 9:30 a.m. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed, any opinion, as have it, and the House stands adjourned.